Hello, everybody. My name is Armando, and I'm going to be doing a quick presentation on serving low-income Latino students. So we're going to go ahead and jump into it, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quickly. All righty. So today we're going to be talking about how to best serve low-income Latino students. Just to give you a little bit more context, I currently work as a dean for a middle charter school here in San Jose, California. We are a network actually, so we have 3 middle schools and 1 high school. 2 are in the east side of San Jose. 1 is in the downtown area, which is where I work, and our high school is also located in the east side. Um, our charter is a little different than most charter because we actively recruit students who struggle academically. So these are the students that are shy, the students that are maybe have behavioral issues, or just those that have kind of slipped through the cracks and are being left behind by traditional school systems. Our goal is to make sure that every student grows a year and a half with us academically, particularly in English and math, in comparison to most schools where obviously the goal is to just grow a year. So we try to do a little bit of a quicker academic growth, accelerated academic growth. And most of the population that we serve are first generation students. 90% of the population that we serve are Hispanic or Latino students. And I'm going to go ahead and share the website from ACE just to share a few milestones. So ACE actually opened up back in 2008 in the Mayfair area here in San Jose. For those of you that are familiar with the San Jose area, in 2009, it was the second highest state test jump for any California public schools, which was a great success. And then we opened up our high school in 2012. In 2013, we were recognized for being the #1 school in the area for Latino algebra proficiency for English language learners. And again, we continue to grow. We have our first graduating class in 2016. So we are soon to start seeing those graduates from college. And we have over 2,000 alumni at this point from downtown and East San Jose. Okay. Um, so let's go ahead and jump back into the presentation. Alrighty, so looking at the book that we're reading here in this class, I pointed out I actually picked out a little bit of data, in particular with the Latino population. Uh, Keep in mind that this data is a little outdated. This book seemed to be from the early 2010s, and there's been new data that has been presented. But just with about 10 years ago, we would say 23% of Latina households are below the poverty rate. More than 87% of Latinos and Latinas are employed in service, support, or labor. And in 2010, the percentage of Latinos and Latinas between 25 and older who have a high school diploma was 62.9%. For some, that might seem like a lot, but it actually is less than most of the other races. And in 2010 as well, only 13.9% of Latinas and Latinos ages 25 and older have a college degree. 13.9%, which is fairly low. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into the little bit of the context of the Latin culture. Keep in mind that this kind of encompasses, we are a diverse group, myself included. I am a Mexican American student. So keep in mind that Latinos includes everybody from Mexico, from Central America, which is Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, El Salvador, South America, right? So Chile, Argentina, and then everybody in the Caribbean is also considered Latino, which is, when you think about the Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Panama, and Dominican Republic. So in our culture, in particular, these are some of the strongest values, which are language. As you could tell, um, we're that's something that really stands out to us. Most cultures kind of start teaching the first generation to speak English. And we kind of stick to the Spanish that we are taught at home, and that kind of we pass it on throughout the generations. We're not easy to let go of our language. I think that's something that identifies us. So either Spanish or in the Brazilian culture, we would see the Portuguese or even the natives from the different countries. We hold on to our language, and it's really important to us. Religion is also really important. Most of the Hispanic community identifies either as um, Catholic or Protestant Christian. And again, that's something that we hold really valuable, and we are taught that at a young age. Family is also really important to us. So we keep a tight knit family. We take care of each other. Um, in comparison to other cultures where we kind of everybody kind of goes their own ways, um, we are kind of taught to look out for each other and even give back to our parents once we get older. Respect is really important for us. The way we talk to our elders is really different than other cultures. And the best way I could explain it is there's a particular way we talk to our elders, which is as if we were talking in third person, and we use we refer to them as usted, where there really isn't a translation to this word, but it's you, but for um, our older family or friends, it's just a sign of respect, and we talk to them as if they were in third person. And again, it's really hard to explain because of the language barrier. There's no actual translation to the way we speak to our elders. There's also a lot of emphasis on the male and female role. Um, I think things have kind of been changing as more families have been coming to the US, but it's been embedded that most of the time the males are the providers, while the females are meant to take care of the family. Again, that things have been kind of evolving throughout the years, but that's something that has been important throughout these years. Becoming a good citizen is really important. So knowing how to treat everybody equally, knowing how to have manners is important to us. And time is important to us. And when we think of time, in other cultures, we think about the amount of time, right? Being on time, spending time with us. It's about being in the moment, which means that we value time with each other, and we would try to make the most out of it. Which is why it is important to keep in mind, and this is something that people I think it's a little interesting, but when we set up a time, at least in the Mexican culture in particular, um, for something an event to start, we don't necessarily arrive exactly on time because we value just being with different people, and we tend to just focus on being in the moment rather than being on time. Um, Again, it's just part of the culture. So before we jump into the obstacles that Latino and Latina students face, I want to show this video, and I'm not going to show the whole thing, but it's just basically it's a video I found online, and it kind of highlights the disadvantage we have. In this case, it's showing a different population, so it's showing the African American um, population in comparison to the European American population. But again, I feel like this video kind of ties into how um, we are at a disadvantage when we start our path in life. So I'm gonna go ahead and just play some highlights and then just do a quick summary of it.
Hey, line up, everybody. I'm gonna make a couple statements. If those statements apply to you, I want you to take 2 steps forward. If those statements don't apply to you, I want you to stay right where you're at. Take 2 steps forward if both of your parents are still married. Take 2 steps forward if you grew up with a father figure in the home. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a private education. Take 2 steps forward if you had access to a free tutor growing up. Take 2 steps forward if you've never had to worry about your cell phone being shut off. Take 2 steps forward. Realize we've been given more opportunity. What you've done has nothing to do with this. You guys up here in the front, just to turn around and look. Every statement I've made has nothing to do with anything any of you have done. Has nothing to do with decisions you've made. Everything I have said has nothing to do with what you've done. We all know these people up here have a better opportunity to win this $100. Does that mean these people back here can't race? No. We would be foolish to not realize we've been given more opportunity. We don't want to recognize that we've been given a head start. But the reality is we have. Now, there's no excuse. They still got to run their race. You still got to run your race. But whoever wins this $100, I think it'd be extremely foolish of you not to utilize that and learn more about somebody else's story. Because the reality is, if this was a fair race and everybody was back on that line, I guarantee you some of these black dudes would smoke all of you. And it's only because you have this big of a head start that you're possibly going to win this race called life. That is a picture of life, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing you've done has put you in the lead that you're in right now. When I say go, hey, line up.
So I think this video, when I think of the disadvantage that low-income Latino population, just immigrant families have, I think this video kind of wraps it up nicely. And we're going to go ahead and jump into the systemic barriers that low-income Latino and Latina families face. And again, I think this is more of a personal presentation, because I do think of these barriers because I think of my education and the way I went about, graduating college and now pursuing my master's. But it took way longer than most of my colleagues and most of my peers that were that didn't have the same background as me, right? So it took me a few years to go through my education and be able to pay for it myself. And I remember being back in high school and being worried about how I'm going to help out my single mom with bills. And instead of being focused completely with school and being able to focus on extracurriculars, I had to figure out ways to work and make ends meet and make sure that I was not a drag to mom and I was able to provide for myself. So these are some of the systemic barriers mentioned in the book that I think were pretty accurate. The first one is language. When we the first thing we do when we get to school is we are categorized as English language learners, and if we are not reclassified on time, we have to take remedial classes in school. And this impacts the extracurriculars that we could do. This impacts the AP classes that we could take. This already means that when we apply for a college, we're not reclassified, we don't stand out, and we're, kind of limits us with the colleges that we apply to. It also is a little harder for when it comes to seeking jobs. When we have those accents, people tend to, make sure that everybody who has a job is able to speak the language, in the English language, fluently, and having an accent could be a bit of a barrier. So just the language in particular, although it's something that we're proud of and is helpful in the long run with finding bilingual jobs, it affects the jobs we get, it affects the schools we could apply to, it affects our schooling, and it's a little bit of a limit. Colonization, as most of you know, Mexico, Central America, and a lot of Latin countries were colonized by the Europeans, mainly by the Spaniards. And so the white narrative kind of, not only did it spread in the US, but it also spread in our own countries, where being white is seen as being superior. And again, it's also the idea that we have here in the United States. So it's a systemic barrier that we are set up to be part of. And I think that we try to keep the white narrative, and we try to the system just in general tries to see us Latinos as less, which is why the jobs that we get are kind of limited. And again, just that white narrative has been not only impacting us. I think it's just in general. It's been years and years of colonizing and a lot of marginalizing our communities, and it continues to be a systemic barrier for us. The other thing is immigration. So families have been separated. Some students are left here because um, the parents are deal with immigration and they're taken back to their homeland. In Arizona, there's been laws about uh, immigration and the way that they could identify if they have any suspicion that a family is not from the US or they weren't born in the US, they are asked to show proof of identity, and they're legally allowed to do this. And This has impacted a lot of our families. Just in general, there's a lot of kids that are left without parents. And when we think about especially these last 4 years from 2016 to 2020, we saw a lot of that happening and being, um, we were kind of put down through social media and different outlets. Education, once again, has always been a systemic barrier. Uh, Again, being categorized as an EL, when we try to be involved with extracurriculars and stuff like that, just being busy with trying to help out at home has also been really hard. And it's really difficult for traditional American families to understand how hard education is for us. Um, and just the different barriers that we have. I think that also includes like when a student tries to graduate from high school and they try to go to college, they are kind of limited with being able to go to college. Luckily, we do have the DACA that was presented to us a few years back. But again, that still requires our immigrant population to pay even more for college. And because of that, with us being low income, for a lot of our families that are low income, education is kind of limited because we have to pay for it, and when you have to pay for it, and there's also things going on at home, and not being able to pay rent, and we kind of don't put education as a priority. Instead, we try to help out at home. So these are all systemic barriers that have been um, implemented, and they continue to be a barrier for us low income Latino families. So when it comes to counseling our own families, the book mentioned liberation psychology. So liberation psychology was presented actually in Latin America, and it gave us a sample of Lupa, who was struggling with figuring out what career she could take, and was not her degree wasn't accepted here in the U.S. So she was going through a lot of depression. So these are some of the terms that they brought up. So conscientization, helping people achieve the awareness of their situation in the context of an oppressive society. Um, so just having people understand that this is a systemic problem. It's not just an internal problem. Um, Participating, so having that collaboration with the therapist is important, and having them be part of the solution, having the client be part of the solution. Problematization, so involve questioning the dominant status quo by creating a safe space for dialogue between the client and the counselor. Um, and Reflection. So the process of critically analyzing and rethinking, questioning experiences within a broad context of issues. Again, these are all um, terms that are presented in liberation psychology, and really helpful with a lot of our Latino and Latina population, our students. And prior to this, we were also taking a what is it called, a counseling theories class. I'm also a big advocate with cognitive behavioral therapy. I do believe that a lot of our students see a lot of traumatic things being raised when we think about the families that we serve. They are more than likely getting paid minimum wage, and then being paid minimum wage requires them to look for an affordable place to live, and most of those affordable places are surrounded by a lot of negative activity, right? Whether it's gangs, drugs, or violence in the area, and with that, our students are exposed to a lot of things that most younger kids aren't exposed to. So I believe that it's important that we treat that trauma, that we figure out a way to get past that, and we're able to help our students with those types of situations. Alrighty, and these are some of my references for this presentation. Once again, thank you for your time, and I hope this kind of gave a broad overview of how to better serve our low-income Latino population. No, sweaty.
You overthink.